Again, this is Red Ribbon Week, and I know we had the speaker yesterday, Mr. Mark Woodward from the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics. He knows our speaker today, unfortunately, and I know the sound in there was not the greatest, so we've moved us out here today. I do have, guys, this is one of my kids. She was a student here. Who she's going to talk about, her brother, was one of my kids, also a student here. All right? She is not here to gain sympathy. She is not here to play the part of a victim. Just like Mark was here yesterday to educate you so you can make better choices, that's what she's here for. This is her first presentation now. It is a very difficult subject for her. So at this time, keep that in mind as she does her presentation. I'm going to bring up Miss Shelby Salazar.
Thank you. All right. Okay, if you'll skip on to the next slide. So my brother was Hughes, and in my opinion, he was one of the most incredible humans to have ever walked the earth. And unfortunately, he's not here anymore, and that has been one of the most traumatizing and the hardest thing of my entire life. But I'm so thankful that I can share this with you guys because this information that I've gained, I didn't get a chance to share that with him. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a background of who he was, how we grew up, because like Mr. Moses said, we both grew up in Jones. We both started in Jones from kindergarten all the way through high school. We were both the only children that my parents had. And we were both very involved in sports. Sports to my family. To my mom, academics was more important. To my dad, it was all about sports. And you had to do sports. You had to be great at sports. Sports was the only way you were going to get into college. We weren't blessed with this abundance of money, so it's not like my parents could just throw us into college. And obviously what we've always been told is if you don't go to college, you're not going to have a future. So that was really our only option. Luckily, Ty and I both were blessed with great athletic genes. He was bigger than all the kids in his class, all the way from Little League till he was a senior. And I am going to go ahead and have Mr. Moses skip to the next slide. We're going to talk football. So this is kind of where it all began for my brother. He gets into high school. He starts his freshman year. I think he ended up playing every football game from the time he was a freshman all the way till he was a senior. My brother also was, once again, I'm not accurate on these facts. Bear with me. I say this to the coaches that are still here in coaching. I believe he was all-state defense. I believe he was some other form of district something. Basically, my brother hit nearly every accomplishment needed whenever it came to football. Of course, my parents, they were pulling for OU, they were pulling for Division I college. The issue with that is my brother was only 6'1", and in order for you to get accepted in athletics, nonetheless football as a defensive player, is you need to be at least 6'2". That was the only thing that kept my brother from going to a Division I college. He met up with some coaches from UCO, and they said, hey, we can give you a full ride scholarship to UCO. It's right down the road. We'll pay for everything. Obviously, like I said, my parents weren't racking in an abundance of money. They said, absolutely, go Broncos. Therefore, he starts college in 2016. My last comment towards this high school football career of his is Ty was a junior. In his junior year, he ends up getting hit and messes up his left shoulder. He tears something, I don't really remember. And like I said, football, sports, college, very important. He needed to have surgery. I'm not blaming my dad by any means. People that are in sports, you should already know this. If you're injured, if you have a surgery, you're damaged goods. It's really hard to get accepted into a college after you've had a surgery. So Ty postpones his surgery. He plays his entire senior year with this messed up shoulder. Okay, skip to the next one. He gets into UCO. As soon as he finishes the football season at Jones, his senior year, you know, they finish in November. December, he has his first shoulder surgery. It was supposed to be, let's say, a 2-hour surgery. It ends up being a 4-hour surgery. The doctor comes and talks to my dad. They said, this was a really bad tear. You probably should have gotten surgery earlier. But of course, the way our family was, oh, that's a very nice recommendation. Thank you very much. So going forward, Ty recovers. He does his physical therapy. He does everything that he's supposed to do. And he gets into college at UCO. He has to gain a new social life because he's no longer here at Jones. He doesn't know everybody. Nobody knows our family anymore. So he's trying to figure out who he is in college. And as I put on here, I put that self-discovery happens during this time. I went to college for a brief period of time. I'm that person that says, college wasn't for me. And there's a lot of self-discovery happening during that time. So college, your freshman year, just so you know, is pretty difficult in general because you don't even know where you are. You don't know what to wear. Anyway, that's for another day. But he's trying to work for acceptance with his social life. He's trying to be well known. He's trying to prove to everybody that he's good enough. And at this point, he now has new goals in his life, new realistic goals. My brother decides he's going to go to school and he's going to try and be a cop. What he really wants to do is he wants to be an actor. However, in high school, he couldn't take acting class, drama. It interfered with sports, so he couldn't do that. Well, now he's in college and he had that opportunity and he was so excited, and obviously we were so hyped for him, but realistically, good job being a cop. Trying to be at least. Next one. Okay, so this is my brother. He ends up having a second surgery. So let's envision he has his first surgery in high school, you know, winter of his senior year. He starts as a freshman at UCO, which is an incredible accomplishment. Keep in mind, our family, we're all about being the best and just going above and beyond, right? So he starts his freshman year of college. He is 18. He's on the defensive line, and he gets drilled by some like 24-year-old dude, because obviously he's in college, and he re-tears his shoulder. In December of his freshman year of college, he goes in for his second shoulder surgery. During this surgery, they put in some anchors, some screws, a whole bunch of other stuff. I believe my mom said it was his labrum. I don't even, once again, past the point, something was wrong with his shoulder. Ty gets prescribed Oxycontin during this time. What I have learned is, as a nation, we were just prescribing pills and opiates, I'm gonna say carelessly. It was because the pharmaceutical companies were saying that they weren't addictive and they were very helpful, and mainly the fact that they weren't addictive was the reason that a lot of doctors didn't have an issue with prescribing them. 2016, they realized, wow, this is actually a horrible idea. people are really addicted to them, and a lot of people are overdosing from them. Prior to that discovery, Ty gets prescribed these Oxycontin. And Ty has refill after refill after refill of these. Obviously, it's not like he's not the kid that you guys all know that you're like, he probably has pills in his pocket right now, you know, like he's probably, that guy smokes a lot of weed or whatever. Like, he wasn't that kid, right? So nobody thought that he was abusing these pills. As far as we know, as a family even, he was just doing what the doctors told him to do. Now, after this second surgery, keep in mind, he's in college now, he then returns to the gym with all of his fellow football players. And a comment was made while he was weightlifting, and someone said, "Ty, you're still on the team?" And that was the most hurtful comment he could have ever heard, and I hate that for him. But he took that so personal, and he called me, and he was so upset, and because he's never had that kind of response from people before. Anyway, I tell him, hey, talk to our mom. She is understanding. She's this saint of a woman, if you ask me. And I told him, go on ahead. Let's see what she thinks you should do. During this time, under this bulletin of finding someone he trusts, my brother ends up dating one of my friends, and that's fine. So he's dating one of my friends, and they're on some date, spending some time together, whatever, and he tells her, he said, hey, by the way, I have a pill problem, I don't want to be like this, and I don't know what to do. Obviously, she calls me, we talk about it, I tell my parents, we're a very close-knit family, we talk about it as a group, okay, what do we need to do? They came up with a game plan. Ty was fine. He didn't have to go to rehab. He didn't have to get on a medication to help him like withdraw from an opiates. Thankfully, it was a pretty smooth process. Next slide. Look at that. That was him at my wedding. What a beaut. Anyway, you know, he never had braces, and it makes me so mad because I had him for 4 years. Anyway, so he starts this new phase of his life. And after talking to my mom, he decides, I'm not gonna do college anymore. As you can imagine, my dad was livid. But that's what he wanted to do. Ty wasn't just built for football. That's something else I want to convey to you guys, is however you're identifying yourself, whether it's academically, whether it's throughout a sport, something that you're really proud of, I just want you to have that in the back of your mind that you're actually, there's more to you than whatever that label is. And I just kind of want you to dart around with that. I mean, at some point in time when you're struggling with some kind of identity. He ends up talking to my mom. My mom tells him, hey, I was in college, I flunked, went and did a VOTEC course. My mom eventually went back to college, and she's now a nurse practitioner, so she's very successful. At this time, Ty now has to find a job. And he was in student living. Well, you quit college, you no longer can be in student living. So he has to move back into my parents' house out here in Jones. Not an issue at all. However, something that he did encounter that he didn't really prepare for was all of his friends are gone. Everybody was off into college. We have some of his friends, the boys, they were at OU, OSU, somewhere in Tulsa. So he had to kind of find a new group of friends. That being said, you know, he had to change his group. At this point, he has to come up with some new goals for himself. He now is trying to completely change his life. He tells me, Shelby, I want a wife, and he said, I want to be like you. I want to have a wife. I want to have some kids. This is honestly what he wanted to name his children. He said, I want to have a daughter named Zeppelin Hughes, and I want to have a son named Huck Hughes. And I said, good luck finding a woman that will allow that to happen. But that was his goal, right? And I think maybe he was leaning towards being a cop. The more I think about it, he took, kid you not, he took a class at the VOTEC, a security course, like to be a security guard. That's just a fun fact. So that's going to kind of conclude the goals and aspirations aspect of it. Mr. Moses, next slide. And here we go. So this was actually the pill that my brother took. So he thought he was taking a Roxy, and then this is, I don't know if you guys are seeing this currently in the news or not, but these are called like rainbow fentanyl, rainbow something, obvious reasons. It really sucks because they don't look like they would be a bad idea. I mean, they're beautiful, the rainbows. But anyway, back to Ty. So he thinks he's taking this Roxy. However, unfortunately, this pill, which was, I think, about the size of your pinky nail, was laced with a lethal dose of fentanyl. I want to tell you how it's produced and why. What will happen a lot of the times, let's say somebody has a prescription for Roxy, and they go on ahead and they decide, I want to make additional profits from this. Let's use Tylenol. They're gonna go on ahead and they're gonna crush up Tylenol and Roxy's, pill press it and sell it and say this is Roxy, and they're gonna make extra money from that. And if they even wanted to be a worse version of a human, that sounds a little rough, but hear me out, they could even just press it with like baby powder and sell it to you guys. So now you're like really out of money and you just ingested baby powder. Going forward, fentanyl really was not, it wasn't created as a bad thing. Fentanyl is used for people that encounter pain, but an opiate, a normal opiate isn't really doing it. And I thought of a good idea, or a good example the other day. I used to work in oncology, so I used to deal with cancer patients. I had a patient, he was this pretty awesome dude, but the guy was missing half of his face to skin cancer. And obviously, an opiate was not going to do the job. Fentanyl is administered either through a sheet that can be put on your tongue, through a patch that has to be monitored through a doctor, or it can also be used as a lozenge, like a lollipop. But it has to be in these small doses because it is such a potent opiate. The next question of, back it up, the next question of why did Ty take it? So these are my theories, because now all of a sudden, here I am, my brother's dead, everybody's looking at us like, why is your brother, was he a secret drug user? Oh my gosh, you know, whenever he died, the News 9 for sure, they made a whole article over my brother. And in that article, they tell about the way he died. Some of it was a little, you know, loose on the facts, but a friend told me, hey, don't read the comments. Obviously, I'm gonna read the comments. So I go to read the comments, and all these people are calling my brother this drug user, and they're saying natural selection, and I just thought, you animals, you have no idea what's really going on. My theory as to why Ty took this, I believe I have about 3. One theory is that my brother was in pain. His next shoulder surgery was in June, so this would have been his 3rd shoulder surgery. He ended up having pain maybe like 6 months prior to June. And he goes in and does a scan, and it ends up some of those anchors had been placed in such a manner that it had rubbed, and it was rubbing on the bone. So he was gonna have to go in and probably have an entire shoulder replacement at this time. Personally, not a bad idea. The second reason he could have taken it, maybe, was to sleep. Based on his body the next day when we found him at about 10 in the morning, and based on his rigor, he probably died around 1 a.m. That's why I think maybe he took it to sleep. He was going to work at Mercy Fitness, and he also had a second job working at Earl's Nursery in Hera. So he was gonna work at both places. The third reason that I think maybe he took it, maybe he was depressed and he wanted to be happy. I don't know. And I do have a fourth reason. The fourth reason being, he was 22 years old. This is a pill that he's taken numerous times. He was prescribed, he knows how it's gonna make him feel, he knows what it's gonna do to him. And he's 22, I mean, what could happen? Like, your friend comes over, your friend gives you this pill, I mean, whatever, fine, and he takes it. What you need to know is this pill was so powerful that my 6'1" brother took a pill the size of his pinky nail, and it killed him so quickly that he died in his sleeping position with his phone still in his hand. And that was bizarre to me. My brother and I were very close, so I had to know everything that happened to him when he died. I needed to know what happened to his body. And as bizarre as that sounds, I did so much research. What happens whenever you take an opiate is you have receptors in the back of your head, kind of on your neck, and those are some of your feel-good receptors. Whenever they become overloaded, such as in Ty's instance with a large quantity of fentanyl, they kind of bump into each other. Once they do that, it causes your respiratory system to kind of freeze. So your lungs you're no longer taking in air. However, your heart is still pumping. What ended up happening to my brother while this is happening is he most likely lost consciousness because it was feel-good receptors. His heart then pumped blood into his air sacs of his heart, and they most likely exploded and ruptured. During this time, since he's no longer able to control some of the other parts of his system, he then asphyxiates, so chokes on his own vomit. And when I saw my brother the next day, because I shouldn't have, but obviously I'm gonna go see him, he had foam and blood and vomit just coming out of his nose and his mouth. And it was horrible. It was not well. And that's what happened to my brother whenever I read up on it enough. And what I was going to add some statistics, and as I go forward in this slide, I might have some in here, I don't really remember. But I'm spending time on fentanyl, not just because it directly impacted me, but I'm spending time on fentanyl because that is primarily what's killing all of us. Even though I'm married now and I have children, I'm still technically not old. So people are dying in between the ages of 18 to 45. Fentanyl is the #1 cause of their death. So what I'm trying to show you going forward is how you guys can survive and make it. The DEA and us as a nation, they're trying to do the best that they can to get a grasp on this, but until they figure that out, I mean, we obviously just have to figure out a way to survive, right? Next slide. So these are a few different forms of fentanyl that I've discovered. Obviously, we have the pills. We have liquid. I believe they've been putting the liquid into heroin. Originally, when fentanyl started getting placed in other drugs, it was originally used to put into heroin because your heroin addicts needed something stronger. Obviously, the people producing this were not chemists, and so that's why people keep dying, because their measurements are off. You have your powder. Once again, I'm hearing about it all the time. I'm really becoming an advocate for this stuff. Now, your Coke has fentanyl in it, which is wild. And then these blocks. So this is where it gets a little crazy to me, if it wasn't crazier enough. So now, rumor is they're being imported and they're being made to look like these blocks, or chalk. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And this story bummed me out hardcore. There was some of this laying at a park on a sidewalk. And some child is like sidewalk chalk, obviously, right? Goes and picks it up. It is absorbed through their fingers, and that child dies. I will be darned if my kid dies because she thinks she's playing with sidewalk chalk. It is ridiculous. Whenever my brother died, the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics showed up to my house, my parents' home. They wanted to know what kind of drugs my brother had been involved in, if he was an active user, all these things. So I'm having to sit there and answer all these questions, tell them everything that he's ever done. And they told us, they said, we're gonna go search his room and see if we can find anything else. And once you guys go to his room, it's very important that you all wear gloves. And I thought, okay, well, I probably should anyway, because he's disgusting. And they said that fentanyl is so potent that it can be absorbed through the skin. That also makes sense because one of the forms of fentanyl comes through a patch. And that makes sense as to why that child died of sidewalk chalk, because it can just be absorbed through the skin. This is something recent that the DEA started, the Faces of Fentanyl. And I will say, I had gotten the link and I filled it out and I spent like 10 or 15 minutes. I'm putting all this detail and everything. I act like I was using a computer. I'm on my phone, obviously. I submitted, it kicks me back a message. Unfortunately, you're too late on the date. However, feel free to submit it next year. And I thought, well, that sucks because I just wasted some of my life with that. But anyway, my brother would absolutely be on this wall, and supposedly it continues for an inordinate period of time. And like I said, so many people are dying at this point from this daily. So they've officially ruled it as an epidemic. And like I said, they're trying to do the best they can, but people are gonna use drugs. I mean, people are gonna use drugs. I wanted to emphasize here that fentanyl doesn't discriminate and you don't have to be a junkie. I'm thinking of Ty, obviously, at the time didn't have an opiate problem. He was not a junkie. He had dreams, aspirations, 2 jobs, had done college for a little bit. You're gonna see a video of him whenever he was in school. He did a lot of skits. He emceed like the special needs, like athletics, like an Olympic thing. Dude was a good kid. Anyway, there's also a girl I recently heard of, and she was in college, everything was good, never done drugs. She was given an Adderall in college and passed over dead. So her parents were, oh no, not my baby. Well, your baby took Adderall, and unfortunately it was bad Adderall. So it's happening to so many people. That's another reason why I'm here, because you guys don't have to be surrounding yourself with some bad people. You guys could just be like, I really have to stay up to finish this. I really need some Adderall. Or, hey, I've heard Coke's pretty cool, and I mean, I trust this person, so what's up? And then you could die. We'll get into that in a little bit. So Toby Mac. So this is just really, this ties into the junkie aspect of it. I didn't know who Toby Mac was. Recently, I started going to church and things like that. So he is a Christian artist, okay? So envision this Christian artist. He has like 4 or 6 kids. So you're thinking like tight-knit Christian home, right? Well, I just found out that in January of 2020, his oldest son, who was 21, died of fentanyl. So that just goes to show you, you can even be in the most well-rounded home. Like I said, you don't have to be a bad person. You don't have to be in a bad way. You could just be like Ty and get overprescribed. You can be depressed. You can be whatever his son was. I don't know, maybe he was just 21, but it sucked seeing that and knowing that it can really happen to anybody. So this is where it really sucked. So I told you guys a little bit about what happened whenever we found Ty. And this was the first thing I did. And I have no reason why I did it. I was so overwhelmed with emotion. Once I came home, I went right to my best friend, Lindy, my childhood best friend. And we're crying and we're like, what's going on? I see my mom, she's talking to some police officer. She goes, oh, this is his, she's like in awe. She's like, this is his sister. She knows everything about him. And I'm like, hi. And that's whenever they asked about drug use. I'm like, no. Then we have to wait for the medical examiner to come to the house. That was traumatizing. Then the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics has to come by. That was traumatizing. Then I have to watch his body get wheeled out. And keep in mind, with rigor mortis, the dude was like stiff. Thank God he had his own AC unit in his room. Like, why is that even a sentence? You know what I mean? Anyway, super traumatizing thing that happens. And the first thing I do while I'm waiting for the medical examiner is I delete his phone number. And I delete the picture in my phone because I just thought, okay, he's on one of my favorites. I got to get him out of there. I have to, like, I have a family. I have stuff I'm supposed to be doing. I don't have time for Ty's crap. Which obviously makes no sense. So I delete that. The emotion was overwhelming. So then here's reality. I had a few other pictures from his funeral and from the burial. All of his friends were all like this whenever we were about to lower him into the ground. But obviously I didn't have the time to plug that in. Just imagine that, you know. So we walk by and we're like, oh, wow. So I think, wow, this is real. I'm alone. I'm now the only child. I'm now responsible for my parents. And then I'm like, dude, you're like cold now. Like, you're for real gone. Like, you're in some basket in the ground and like, I'm never gonna see you again. But it still wasn't real. But it wasn't fully real until his headstone came in, and I remember losing it. It was so horrible because Ty Williams. Dang. Whoa. So, I go there one day and I'm like, I'm gonna take a picture with my family, husband, 2 children, Ty, which my daughter says, oh, that's Uncle Ty. So that's kind of weird because he's just like a stone. And my mom genuinely, you guys, loves this photo. I understand where she's coming from, but I'm also kind of like, it's a little weird. But she's like, I have all my kids together, and that's so sad. You know, imagine one of your family members saying like, oh, all my kids are together. Like, wow, that's pretty intense. Here's the next one. So this is how we hang out as a family now. So instead of hanging out by the pool, listening to like, you know, Zeppelin, the Bee Gees, your typical fun stuff, or going to parties because that's what we did as a family. But obviously, I just do Snapchat filters with him because what else am I gonna do? He's dead. And then my dad felt the need to still take care of my brother. So the only way he could take care of him was by taking care of his grave. My dad had rags and stuff, and he would go to the cemetery in the morning, and he would go to the cemetery in the evening, and he would wipe off his stone, and then of course we had to buy a bench, so then he'd wipe off the bench. And my mom, she's so precious, and she hates going there. Me too. So she is one of those people, she believes that when she sees like a red bird, that's Ty, or like a butterfly. So she's, you know, she's cool. She's in the game on doing her own thing. But obviously we had to get a picture together. So that's, once again, our new reality. Okay. This is where I come in with some facts and some resources for you. They came out with fentanyl test strips. I was really against this because obviously I don't think people should just be doing drugs. Realistically, you guys are gonna go to college, you guys are gonna go to parties, your friends are gonna be like, hey, you want this to help you sleep? And it might have fentanyl in it. With a fentanyl test strip, you are able to dilute it in some water, drop the test strip, and then it will tell you if it has fentanyl in it or not. There is one primary flaw to this. Let me show you this photo right here. So out of this entire pill, if they were to break apart that piece of the pill and dip it with the dipping stick, this part of the pill actually has no fentanyl because it is poorly produced and poorly mixed. If they would have broken off this part, it would have showed that there was fentanyl. However, they do this, they take the entire pill, and they still die. So fentanyl strips, it's available, but you know, obviously there's a flaw in the system. I also have yet to find where I can purchase these at. I want to say I asked CVS and they looked at me like I was weird, and I was just like, okay, cool. Now, the next one is going to be Narcan. So I have a video that I'm gonna show you guys because I think it's very important that you know about Narcan. Something prior to that video, you all can fill out this form, and I'm going to send that link to Mr. Moses. You guys can fill out this form and submit it, and you can receive a free thing of Narcan in the mail. Keep in mind, the only way we could have saved Ty is if he would have told my mom, hey, I'm about to take this pill, it's like 1 a.m., and it might have a lethal dose of fentanyl in it, and I could die. And then my mom would have said, okay, cool, we have Narcan. We didn't have Narcan because nobody in my family is an active user. And second thing, the medical examiner said the quantity of fentanyl was so excessive that it would have taken 2 things of Narcan to revive my brother. So he really had no chance at this point. Back to what I was saying, you can gain a free thing of Narcan in the mail. I also called CVS and Walgreens, and you can get Narcan from both of those places for free. Or not for free, wait till you hear the price. So you can go there, you can ask the pharmacist, I need Narcan. They will be able to actually write you a prescription for it, and they will fill it and give it to you. The price for that Narcan is about like $130 or something like that. Like, you gotta really want your Narcan. You know, that's why I'm saying I'm gonna give Mr. Moses the link so that you guys can explore that option. I did go to the Walmart pharmacy, which people forget about. You can get the generic brand, $37. Just saying, you're welcome. Okay, back to it with the Narcan, Mr. Moses. Let's see if you remember how to play this video. Yes. And I think the woman is saying it in like a Australian, I don't know, it's kind of a soothing voice. Or maybe it's not, whatever.
Naloxone is a medication designed to rapidly reverse opioid overdose. It can restore normal respiration to a person whose breathing has slowed or stopped as a result of overdosing with heroin or prescription opioid pain medications. How to recognize an opioid overdose? Small constricted pinpoint pupils, falling asleep or loss of consciousness, slow, shallow breathing, choking or gurgling sounds, limp body, pale, blue or cold skin. How to use Narcan? 1. Identify an opioid overdose and check for response. 2. If no response, administer Narcan through the nasal passages. This will not cause harm if not experiencing an opioid overdose. 3. Call 911 immediately, as additional support is often needed. 4. Try to keep the person awake and breathing. 5. Lay the person on their side to prevent choking. 6. Stay with the person until emergency workers arrive. To obtain Narcan to carry, please talk to your primary care provider or pharmacist. You do not need a prescription to obtain this overdose reversing medication. Please keep it room temperature.
So the whole purpose in me showing you all about Narcan, how to use it, is because unfortunately this is your new reality. This is your generation's new reality. This is going to be your college experience, and I hate that for you guys. I hate that for you guys. In my opinion, whenever you guys go to college, that's something that you should, in my opinion, carry around, because you're gonna be walking around and someone might just straight up pop over and die. And it's gonna be super traumatic, but it's gonna be even more traumatic if you knew that you had a resource and you didn't save that person. Until we as a nation figure out how to actively get a grasp on this fentanyl epidemic, those are your two primary resources. Of course, I also left out counseling. I added counseling in there in case you do have a problem, you know someone who has a problem, and you're recognizing, I am really playing like a former Russian roulette. A statistic is if you look to a person at your left and a person at your right, that would be 3 of you. There's a chance that if all 3 of you take a pill, 2 of you will die because it will have a lethal dose of fentanyl. And I can tell you guys right now, Ty and I, we didn't know about fentanyl. None of his friends knew about fentanyl. Had he known that 2 out of 3 people would have died, he would not have taken the pill. And of course, you all have a choice, and you can make that decision if you obviously want to test those statistics. Next slide. If there is a next slide. Okay, the next thing is the video. Okay, I am going to escort myself into the office because this is extremely hard for me to watch. I debated on putting pictures of Ty in his casket. I did not want to do that to you guys because I was not cool with seeing death at all, but nonetheless. Anyway, it's not a picture of his dead body. So, just to get that straight, I'm gonna turn off this mic, I'm gonna go in there, you guys are gonna watch the video. I will then come back in. Lindy, do you want to do that? Do you want to sit in here? You're good? Okay.